Okay, Erev Tov, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to another week shiur, a weekly shiur on Pirke Avot, as we're starting the weeks between Pesach and Shavuot. This is chapter 4, Bezat Hashem, which we're going to get to soon. But I don't want to, go through the shiur without talking a little bit about Rabbi Meir Balanes, who tonight is his Hilula. And I saw an amazing idea here by Rabbi Daniel Gladstein in his new Sefer on Rabbi Meir Balanes, a great chidush that I'll share with you, and then we'll go right into the Mishnah of this week. He quotes a pasuk in Parashat Vayishlach as Yaakov Avinu was about to encounter Esav, his brother. The pasuk says, "Vayira Yaakov meod vayetzer lo," that Yaakov became very frightened and it distressed him. And Rashi says, what does it mean? He became frightened and then distressed him. So he became frightened refers to he was afraid that he was going to be killed. Yaakov was going to be killed. That's why he was scared. So mazev vayetzer lo. So what is exactly the meaning of and it distressed him? So Rashi says, im yaharog hu et acherim. He was also distressed lest he kill others. Maybe Yaakov will kill other people. Okay? So because who is these other people? It's in reference to Esav, which is his brother. Lest Yaakov, find the strength to go and kill Esav. So the whole question is here is why would he feel distressed? Why is he going to, if he's going to kill his enemy that wants to kill him, then why would he feel distressed? There's a lot of answers to this question. So especially that the Gemara says, if someone comes up to kill you, then you have to go up and kill him first. So why would Yaakov feel distressed? So the main answer that's given is because Rivka, their mother, prophesied when she said, "Lama eskal gam shenechem yom echad." Why should I be bereaved of both of you on one day? That they were both going to die on the same day. Yaakov and Esav were both going to die on the same day. So if Yaakov had to kill Esav, that means it was distressful for him because he was going to die as well. So the Gur Aryeh asks a phenomenal question, and he says, "Why does Rashi say that Yaakov was worried im yaharog hu et acherim?" That he was going to kill others. If indeed it meant Esav, say Yarog et Esav. That's what it means. Use the name Esav. Why say Acherim? So that was his answer. So to answer the question, you have to know a little bit of Jewish history. That he had 400 men. Yeah, okay. But no, why mention Esav? Why not say his name, Esav and the others? What's Acherim, others? So he says that the Gemara Masechet Gitin talks about that the first steps taken by the Roman government to destroy the Bet HaMikdash, was led by an individual named Nero Caesar. The Caesar, his name was Nero. And prior to advancing that first attack, he encountered a young schoolboy. And he asked the schoolboy, "What did you learn in school today?" And the boy quoted a pasuk in Yechezkel that says, "Venatati et nikmati be'edom beyad ami." I will place my vengeance in Edom, Beyad Ami Israel, by the hand of my people Israel. Now, Nero is from Edom. He takes this as a sign. I better not advance because I'm going to be done. I'm going to be finished. So he took this as a heavenly message. He fled his post. He ran away and converted to Judaism. And the Gemara tells us, "V'nafak mineh Rabbi Meir," that Rabbi Meir came from Nero Caesar. From Nero Caesar. So incredibly, that Rabbi Meir is a descendant of this, was once a Rasha, turned to a person that converted to Judaism because he was afraid. Look at this. The Gemara Masechet Horayot relays a very interesting account of the Nasi. The Nasi was the chief rabbi of the Jewish people, and his name was Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, and he was a Nasi. And the two people under him were Rabbi Meir Balanes, he was the Chacham, and Rabbi Natan. Rabbi Natan was the Av Bet Din. And there was a series of occurrences that took place where Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Natan would challenge the Nasi's authority, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel's authority. Whatever, they got in some arguments. Maybe they say, I don't know if you're right for the post. It's not the first time that we see some politics in Jewish leadership. They were challenging them. Now, when the Nasi found out, he said, from that day on, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Natan are not going to be called by their actual names. Rabbi Natan is going to be called Yesh Omrim. Whenever you see the Mishnah, Yesh Omrim, that's Rabbi Natan. And whenever you see Acherim, is Rabbi Meir. That's what he says. So based on this Gemara, look at the depth that Rashi is saying. When Yaakov Avinu feared killing Acherim, he was not referring to Esav. He was referring to Rabbi Meir that was going to come from Esav. He was going to later evolve because Nero was from the Romans, Esav hu Edom, and Rabbi Meir was going to come from there, and that's what he feared. In fact, there's in Pirke Rabbi Eliezer, it says that the Jewish, a very enigmatic line, that the Jewish people forgot to destroy Amalek, but Hashem didn't forget. I mean, Hashem didn't forget. I mean, Hashem forgets anything? Why do you have to even tell me that Hashem didn't forget? He goes, the idea here is because they didn't want to destroy Amalek until, Rabbi Meir was able to be extracted from Amalek. His neshama was supposed to come out from Amalek. And some even want to go out and say that that's what Shaul HaMelech meant when he was challenged by Shmuel, and Shmuel tell him, hey, how come you left Agag alive? You were commanded to kill all of Amalek. Why did you keep the king alive? And Shaul says, what are you talking about? Hakimoti devar Hashem. I upheld the word of God. He did not keep the word of God. Well, how can you say such a thing? The answer is because I have to keep one person so that Rabbi Meir can come from that person. If I wipe out all of Amalek, then where's Rabbi Meir going to come out from? Incredible idea here. That's where it comes from. Of course, the whole sefer is really phenomenal. If you have a chance to go by, there's some wonderful chidushim over here. But yeah, Rabbi Meir comes, a descendant of Nero Caesar, and to know that such a great mind came from such a person really goes to show you the greatness of the tzaddik and the Tanah that we're talking about. The author is Rabbi Daniel Gladstein. He has he's very profound works. His writings are very deep. But if you like that type of stuff, then you can find a lot of it. And I think he has like 4 or 5 books out now. I think just came out one of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, believe it or not. And he has on the holidays. It's very good. Okay, so that's a little bit about Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes, because tonight is his Hidulah, Zechuto Yagen Aleinu, Amen. But now we're going to continue with our Mishnah, Pirke Avot. We're in the 4th chapter this week. We're going to be studying Perek Bet, the second Mishnah of this chapter. Again, if you want to look at the first Perek and what we spoke about a couple of years ago, you can check out on the YouTube channel where I have the shiur there recorded. The author of this Mishnah is no less important. His name is Ben Azai. Ben Azai says the following: Ben Azai Omer, Heveratz le mitzvah kala kevahamura. Be quick, run towards performing a minor mitzvah, just as you would run to perform a major one. Uboreach mina avera, and flee from sin, from transgression. Why? Shemitzvah goreret mitzvah. One commandment leads to another mitzvah. Va'avera goreret avera, and one transgression leads to another transgression. Sheschar mitzvah. You should know that the reward of performing commandment is another commandment. That is your reward. Usechar avera, and the reward for committing a transgression is a transgression. Okay, so these are his words. There's a lot to say over here about on this Mishnah. Some of the ideas we've spoken about in the past, specifically in the last few years on Shabbat afternoon, we've been learning a sefer called Mesilat Yesharim, a classic work by the Ramchal, Rav Moshe Chaim Lutzato. And he speaks about in the 7th chapter, I believe, in the chapter of Zerizut, of alacrity, the broader theme of being quick and running towards serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that it's not just to fulfill mitzvot, but I have to do it with enthusiasm, I have to do it with love, I have to do it with eagerness. And that shows a certain dedication towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a passion towards God, that demonstrates the mitzvah is not something that is rote, but it's a cherished opportunity. And over there, he gives many, many examples that we've spoken about again on that in the afternoon shiur, and even in this class recently. We spoke about Abraham Avinu. When the 3 angels came to visit Abraham Avinu, he ran, Vayarotz, he ran to greet them and to make the food for them, even though he had just had surgery performed on him in the Brit Milah in the midst of recovering from his circumcision. But again, zeal, eagerness. We also spoke of Rivka Imenu, when she was such a young child. Again, it's another example that the Ramchal brings, being Eliezer's looking for a wife for his master's son, Yitzchak. Rivka quickly runs to draw water for him and his camels. And again, we see the willingness and the eagerness to do what is asked of her. And how can we forget probably the greatest example, which represents all of Klal Yisrael, is with Am Yisrael accepted the Torah on Har Sinai, the famous words that they used was Na'aseh v'nishma, that we will do and we will listen. We want to do it now. We're ready. We're happy. We're thrilled. We're excited. We're enthusiastic to accept this Torah, to live with this Torah, to make it a part of our lives, even before we even understand them fully. This is what makes Am Yisrael, these two words, these two crowns that were given to every Jew on that day of Matan Torah, which we're going to be celebrating in just under 3 weeks' time. And that inner zeal that a person has, that ability to ratz towards a mitzvah, to run towards a mitzvah, devotion and love, to shows that there's yes, even sometimes a sense of urgency, an importance placed on it. That's how we do. That's how we perform our mitzvah with joy, with vigor, and it not only inspires ourselves when we perform our mitzvah, but inspires others. Maybe that's what he meant when he says shesechar mitzvah. The sechar of the mitzvah that you do would lead either yourself to do another mitzvah, but you'll see other people will watch you and see how much you love to perform the mitzvot, and how much concentration you have in your tefillah, and how much concentration you have in your brachot, so on and so forth. It will get them to elevate their own service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's really what's written in the 7th, 8th chapter with regards to Zerizut. If you backtrack into the 2nd chapter, which is after his Hakdamah, Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto in Mesilas Yesharim talks about Zehirut. Zehirut is watchfulness, which is really the second part of this Mishnah, which is being vigilant and cautious, and to avoid averot and to avoid transgressions. And there he emphasizes the dangers and the punishment that is associated with these sins, and what we have to do to make sure that we don't fall into the trap of the Yetzer Hara that's always out to get there. Being mindful of our own behaviors, being mindful of the fact that there's constantly a potential for sin, that a person can always do better to guard themselves from the Yetzer Hara, from doing wrong, and that involves constant introspection and constant reviewing of your day, and how did it go, what did I do wrong, just like a person would take an accounting at the end of his day to see where he could improve. Same thing, what I need to do to protect myself from the Avera, to avoid all types of temptation. I'm going to create a barrier to avoid an Avera. That means I'm going to institute laws such as Mukseh, and I'm going to institute that after a certain time during the day I'm not going to talk because I don't want to speak Lashon Hara. These are all things of Zehirut, of watchfulness, distancing yourself from environments or people or circumstances that could lead to Averot. We spoke about Moshav Letzim last week. That was our topic. By staying far away from any type of idle chatter, that's just one example, which reduces the likelihood to fall into the sin of Avodah Zarah. And just like a person should run towards a mitzvah with zeal, a person has to run away from an Averah, Boreach mina Averah, as he says, with equal sense of urgency. And when you're faced with the same potential for Averah, you need to have immediate decisive action. It needs to be right away. You need to escape the danger. If you delay, if you hesitate, if you say to yourself, okay, it's okay, I'll just hang around over here. It's not going to be so bad. The day's almost done. So what if a few people are talking bad? Or so what? I'm just going to speak in this corner over here in the synagogue. No one's going to realize. Okay, and then I'll go back to my seat. No, once you start doing that, you're succumbing to your temptation. You have to be proactive. You have to show what are your strategies to avoid averot. This is all what he speaks about in the Ramchal, things that we generally have discussed over the years. And one of the biggest examples that we can give from our Torah is, of course, Yosef HaSadik. Yosef HaSadik, when he even just felt a little bit of temptation when it came to Potiphar's wife, the Torah says, "Vaymaen, get out of here! I'm not interested." And he ran away, dropped all of his clothes, went out naked outside because he didn't even want to chas v'shalom, succumb to that sin. Immediate action to avoid averah that demonstrates a physical and a moral courage as well. One of the issues that I have is we see an apparent contradiction between this Mishnah and the order of the Ramchal, because the Ramchal in Mesilat Yesharim first spoke about Zehirut, watchfulness, and then spoke about Zrizut, alacrity. In other words, the Ramchal is following the path of David HaMelech. David HaMelech in Tehillim famously writes, Sur Merah, va'aseh tov. First, you have to desist from evil and from sin, and then go and do good. That's the order. But if you pay attention to our Mishnah, again, I'll repeat it again. Ben Azai says, Ratz la mitzvah kala kevachamura, and then boreach mina avera. Why the opposite way? Why it should be Ben Azai omer boreach mina avera ve'veratz la mitzvah kala kevachamura. Why does he switch the order of? This seems to be Sur Merav Asetov. David HaMelech. Who are we to argue with David HaMelech? It's such a famous dictum, a famous idea. So, do they contradict? And what would be the differences between the two? And how can we make sense of it? Yeah.
It could be that when you're doing mitzvah, you're not doing anything wrong. So you haven't got time to do anything.
Okay. So yeah, we're gonna see. We're gonna see that. That's a good point. So, let's speak about David HaMelech first. Sur Merav Asetov. According to David HaMelech, the idea is I want to establish first a foundation of, let's call it, moral integrity of who I am, what is right and what is wrong. Okay? And once I have that foundation of avoiding evil and being pure, now I can then go ahead to build a life of righteousness and good deeds and tzidkut. And just like a strong foundation is essential for any building that you want to build, and that building is going to be all of your merits over the years, so too, when you have to turn away from evil, that's necessary in order so that you can practice sincere good deeds. I also need Sur Merah to prevent harm, like we spoke about. I eliminate harmful behaviors. And once I accomplish that, then I know that my good actions are not going to be compromised because I'm still doing averot. Because what does that mean? What does that mean if I'm doing good, but at the same time, I'm performing averot behind the back? I'm giving tzedakah, but that's money that I used to steal or to cheat or to fraud other individuals. Like, what does that work? That doesn't work. So therefore, I have to first eliminate any potential harm to myself and to my midot or to my way of life before I can go ahead and start performing good deeds. And avoiding evil can be argued that it's a necessary step, a preparatory step, to allow yourself to engage in positive actions. So that's David HaMelech. That's Sur Merah V'aseh Tov. So what about Ben Azai? Ben Azai's approach is I pursue commandments first. That's what he says. Heverat la mitzvah kala. And we can say that Ben Azai is the proactive. Now you have the reactive and the proactive. So Ben Azai would be the proactive approach. How am I going to get to my spiritual goal? I'm just going to jump right into it. I'm going to actively seek out opportunities to serve God. And when I achieve those, what I set out to do, then it's going to inspire further positive behavior. Mitzvah, goreret, mitzvah. Okay? And the reason is because when a person does so, it builds a momentum. The feeling you get when you do something nice, the feeling you get when you give to an organization or you help someone old across the street or you go and visit the sick, it's hard to describe that feeling, but you just feel so good. And it gives you a momentum to do it more. And that's often how a lot of things started out in life. A lot of organizations started out from one act, one little mitzvah that a person did and said, you know what, I really enjoy doing this. And it gives them the momentum to go on and go on. And therefore, you commit yourself to righteousness, and then you're filled with righteousness. It's a mitzvah, goreret mitzvah, which makes it easier to avoid transgressions. It promotes awareness and sensitivity to other areas of life, ethical standards, moral standards, because as David HaMelech says, Kol mitzvotecha emunah. He writes in Pirke Avot, all of your mitzvot is emunah. When I'm involved myself in emunah, I see truly how Hashem is, how He wants us to behave. And sometimes they're obvious, like don't murder and don't kidnap and don't steal, okay, or stand up for the elderly. And sometimes they're not so obvious. But you should know, and you should understand that every mitzvah that we have, there's a deeper, profound effect to our neshama. And that heightened spiritual awareness that we get every time we perform a mitzvah, immediately and automatically, we become naturally inclined to avoid any type of averot. And therefore, we perform the mitzvot, and through the mitzvot, then we end up becoming better people and better Jews, and building positive habits, because that's what we're meant to. That's what life's all about. Life is all about how I can become a better person. In fact, today I had a discussion with some of the grade 6 girls in middle school. It was part of their bat mitzvah program. Huh?
Isn't that a little bit of guidance? Shouldn't life be about the working on what can I do?
There is that, but you also have to say, like the Gemara says, that kol ha'olam nivra ela bishvili, right? That the world was created for me. But how am I going to get closest to Hashem? Obviously, you still have to be considerate of the people next to you. All right. But when you're dealing with, I was saying that, I have a conversation with some of the grade 6 girls, how to deal with difficulties and challenges. Everyone has their own challenges and difficult situations in life. And I gave them 2 pieces of advice. I gave them, number 1, you have to have faith, whatever things are out of your control, that Hashem is going to be in charge. That's number 1. And number 2, the second most important thing is that how do you know whether you pass the test of your difficult situation? Is whether or not you became a better person out of it. If you became a better person out of it, and you tried and you worked and you did everything you could, and you feel better, and you come out of there, then you come out of there on top. You won. Whether or not you expected the outcome or you didn't expect the outcome, but that's what it is. So every time you perform a mitzvah, you're performing Hashem's will, and therefore, of course, you will build more and more positive habits. Yeah.
Why is it okay for the individual that's smart to realize what he's doing?
Who's this? Sorry.
Anybody who's smart,
Yeah.
realizing about his action, it's okay. How to explain somebody who's not too bright and always doing averot? He doesn't realize.
If he doesn't realize, okay, you're right. If he doesn't realize, then Tinok Shenishba. Like some people just don't know. They're not knowledgeable. They didn't want to go to school. They didn't come to shiurim, so they don't know what's right and what's wrong. There are certain moral, ethical standards that I think every society contains and is expected. And you have to, for the most part, society is good, and there are rules, and we are governed by a set of laws that we are expected to abide by, because that is what moral ethics and conduct tell us how we should behave. Okay, but then some people just do whatever they want, and they feel that they don't have a value for life. For them, life is a game. Life is how can I experience the most pleasure? And you'll ask them on the street, and that's what they'll tell you. Like there's people that go out and ask them, they go, "What's the point of life?" And they don't have an answer for you. Okay, what can I say? It's difficult. I invite them to my shiur. Maybe they come in to learn something. Anyways, but so when you have these 2 approaches, you have David HaMelech and you have Ben Azai. Okay, you can argue that maybe David HaMelech is the initial step of moral, spiritual refinement. Okay, I'm going to turn away evil. That's my first step. And Ben Azai then builds on this foundation. All right, so maybe they can work together. Again, David HaMelech would be the preventative strategy. I want to create a baseline of moral conduct, and to do that, I need to avoid any types of sins, sur mirah. Okay, and the Ben Azai's emphasis is on the ba'aseh tov. It's a proactive strategy. How am I going to cultivate a practice of righteousness that can further lead me to doing more and more and more, and at the same time deter me from falling into sin? So maybe they are not contradictory. Maybe they are complementary. Maybe they work hand in hand, beyachad, each of them addressing and focusing different yet equally important aspects of our spiritual growth. Now we're going to get a little bit with some examples. One of the questions that I thought of was, why did Ben Azai specifically write to run to an easy mitzvah? Mitzvah kala kevachamura. Run to an easy mitzvah, or be quick in performing a minor commandment just like it was a major commandment. I believe the answer, I believe Ben Azai, he may have not known it, but he, of course, these Tanaim had tremendous Ruach HaKodesh. And I believe Ben Azai may have been foreshadowing something that was going to happen later on in history, specifically to his life. We'll start like this. Many, many people in this world, when they get excited and they feel that momentum to do good, or let's focus on Yadut, Torah, and Mitzvot, they always want to jump to the most extreme form of mitzvot or observance. Often you see this a lot with Baalei Teshuvah. When they come back on the path, which is great, it's amazing. But then they go like absurd, right? They start taking upon themselves things that are not the norm. A lot of it doesn't make sense. They'll start fasting multiple times. They'll start, avoiding everybody. Oh, they're Baalei Teshuvah. Okay, they stop talking to almost every single person except their parents, right, because they don't want this. And so they really, really take upon themselves the extreme. And often what happens is they burn out. And unfortunately, many of them fall back off. And I get it. The Rambam gives us advice often when you're battling a certain midah. If you're on this side, then you got to go to all the way there. But you got to make sure you get back in the middle. You can't just stay there, or you will burn out and you'll lose it. There is an unfortunate story brought down in the Gemara that we don't like to talk about much, and no one really knows what happened in that story. But the Gemara tells us, Hanu Rabbanan, Arba'a nichnesu ba'pardes, that there were 4 rabbis that entered the Pardes. The Pardes, which literally means the orchard, is they entered an area through a lot of Kabbalah and getting your mind and meditation. They were able to deal with the loftiest secrets of the Torah, up to the point where they were kibiyachol, right near the Pirke Avot, or close to the realm of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. These 4 people were Ben Azai, the author of our Mishnah, Ben Zoma, the author of the first Mishnah in this parak, Acher, who was Elisha ben Abuya, he was a rabbi of Rabbi Meir Bar Anes, okay, and Rabbi Akiva. And the Gemara tells us, Amar lahem Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva told them, all 3 of them, when you arrive and you reach the pure marble stones, al tomru mayim mayim. Don't say the words water, water, even though they appear to be water. Mishum shneimar, dover shekarim lo yikon leneged enai. That he who speaks falsehood shall not be established before my eyes. In other words, Rabbi Akiva seemed to be the only person that knew what he was doing, getting up there. And he was warning them, whatever you see, you think it's what you see, but it's not. And if you say something or whatever, if it's a lie, it's bad news. What you think is water is not water. He was giving them this pep talk, getting up there. The Gemara then says, Ben Azai hetzitz vamet. Ben Azai, the author of a Mishnah, glimpsed at the divine presence and died. Alav HaKatuv Omer, about him, the pasuk says, "Yakar be'enei Adonai hamafta lachasidav." Precious is in the eyes of Hashem is the death of his pious ones. Ben Zoma hetzitz v'nifga. Ben Zoma glimpsed and was harmed. He lost his mind. He went crazy. Ve'alav HaKatuv Omer, "Devash matzata echod dayecha pentis ben v'akeoto." Okay. Acher, that was Elisha ben Aviya, kitzetz bintiot. Acher chopped down the shoots of the trees. In other words, he became a heretic. That's when he went from Elisha ben Abuya and he was kofer ba'ikar. He denied, totally off. And lastly, Rabbi Akiva yatsa b'shalom. Rabbi Akiva was the only one that saw and left in peace. Now, what happened here? Not for now. First of all, there's so much depth to the story. I cannot begin to tell you what this means. I don't know what this means. I can only take it at face value of what it is. But I don't think anything is a coincidence in life. That Ben Azai, before this story happened, is warning all of his readers till the end of time. Run towards a light mitzvah. Don't jump to go and say, where am I going to go see HaKadosh? Let me go jump through meditation, through Kabbalistic literature, and now let me feel, I want. Just go and perform. I said, what's a simple mitzvah to you? Giving a few coins a day, chazaku baruch. Praying Shema, Sfirat HaOmer, that's a simple mitzvah. Lighting Shabbat candles. Do that. Treat it kibachamuraf. You should treat it that it's like, because it is. because that's what Hashem wants to do. And I hope I'm right saying this, but I believe that this was a foreshadow of what was to be in his life. Because look what he ended up doing with these 4 rabbis, and they weren't prepared for it. None of them were prepared, except for Rabbi Akiva. He was the only one. They weren't prepared for it. And it's a chaval. Yakar b'nei Hashem amarta lechasidav, such a precious soul. The Gemara refers to Ben Azai, that was lost, a pious person, because he jumped at the opportunity to go to places that he shouldn't have gone. And therefore, Ratha mitzvah kala, just focus on the simple stuff. You know, there's a sefer called Orchot Tzadikim, which the ways of the righteous, which is basically a book on midot. A lot of people read it in yeshiva. It's been translated many times. And over there, in the section called on the midah of chemda, on the mitzvah of desire, lust, and jealousy, he says something unbelievable. This idea of how when you start doing one thing bad, it can lead to another. And that's how we're going to go in that direction now. He says something unbelievable. He says, "Adam asher chemda mitkaberet bo." If somebody who is overcome and overpowered by his lust and jealousy and desire for things, who karov la'avor al aseret adibrot, this man can transgress all 10 commandments. And he explains, Ki ba'aseh be'ish echad, there was once a man, haya lo shachen rasha, he had an evil neighbor, ve'haya kotel mafsik benehem, and there was a wall separating the 2 backyards. Haya rasha chomed et ishto uksat machafatzav. This evil man, he thought that the neighbor's wife was very pretty. He wanted to be with her. And he also had a few nice cars that he wanted to take. Yom echad erev Shabbat, shama shaya ish omer leishto, rotze ani latzet lischora. So one Friday in the morning, he heard the man tell his wife, I'm going to go do business. I'm going to make some money for Shabbat. And so he did. Ma'asa oto rasha. What did this rasha do? Halach belel Shabbat, v'shiber hakotel shaya mafsik benehem. So the husband of the wife went to go work probably overseas because he wasn't home. So on Friday night he went and he broke the wall that was between them. Hare avar azachor et yom haShabbat lekadesho. So now he broke Shabbat. Halach ve'anas et ha'isha shaya chomed. He went and he raped this woman. He took her unwillingly. V'shachav ima. Hare avar lo tinaf. Now he transgressed lo tinaf. Ve'achar kach ksheitchil ligzol et hamamon. When he started to steal the money, tza'aka ha'isha. The woman started screaming, called for help. Amad alea lehorga. So he got up and he killed her. Hare avar lo tirtzach. That's 3. Uksheganav vegazal ma shechamad. Now once he took it, hare avar lo tignov velo tachmod. He transgressed, don't steal, and don't covet. That's now 4 and 5. Lemachar amdu avi veimo ve'achichu oto. The next morning, his parents found out what he did, started yelling at him. Amad alehem ve'ikam. Got up, yelled at him, and struck his parents. Hare avar kabel et avicha ve'timecha. That's 6. Ve'achar kach huva livnei bet din. Then he went in front of bet din. Ve'id hu im chavero belial shelu chafatzim shalakach hem mashkon shelo. He testified with his friend that really the items that he took was a collateral that was owed to him over the time. Okay? And then he swore that he was not negligent when he was keeping the object, because he swore in God's name. What ended up happening? Everybody found out about what this guy did. Because of his busha, of his embarrassment, he went out and denied Hashem. And now he transgressed Anochi. Once he's off the derech, he started clinging to idol worship and bowed down. And all of this came as a result of his coveting of this woman and the possessions that his neighbor had. The idea was to emphasize how serious a transgression chemda is, lust and desire and coveting and jealousy and so much and so forth. But here, in the context of our Mishnah, we can see very clearly avera goreret avera. Once you do one thing, once you start falling into the trap, you can't control yourself. Because and that's usually you see interviews that they've had criminals or people in jail. You know, what are they? Once I started, or not, I just keep on doing it. I gotta keep on doing because I figured I'm in the rut anyways, so I might as well just get as much as I can. I robbed one bank, so I'm just going to go rob another bank, and they just feel like they have to do to keep up. This is what it is. In fact, this is hinted. In next week's parasha. Next week's parasha, Parashat Bechukotai, which is normally together with Behar. Okay, so we'll consider like a little bit of the parasha, but it's next week's parasha. Next week's parasha has the blessings and the curses. Okay, it's the smaller version of the blessings and the curses. The bigger version is later on in Parashat Avot. But if you look at the curses of the kelalot, of tochacha, the pasuk says, "Ve'im lo tishme'u li," if you will not listen to me, "Ve'lo ta'asu," and you will not perform, "Ve'im bechukotai timasu," and you will scorn my mitzvot. Look what Rashi says over here. "Ve'im lo tishme'u li," if you will not listen to me, "liot amelim b'Torah," meaning you're not going to engage in Torah. Okay, "Ve'lo ta'asu," and then not perform. Rashi says, "Mishelo tilmedu lo ta'asu." If you're not going to perform the mitzvah of learning, then you're not going to perform the mitzvah. Hare shte averot. You're now at 2 averot. Ve'im bechukotai timasu. What does it mean, ve'im bechukotai timasu? I'm just quoting Rashi here. This is not my own. Mo'es ba'acherim ha'osim. You're going to scorn and you're going to be disgusted with those that do it. And that's generally what happens. When you are not learned and you are not in a level of spiritual elevation, you can't take the fact that somebody else is. So when you see somebody else that is actually performing a mitzvah and coming close to Hashem, it bothers you. It bothers you to the core, to the point where it's ma'asta. Ma'us is disgusted, it's scornful. So, and you see somebody else. Et kol mitzvotai, sorry, I skipped the line. Mishpatai tigal nafshechem, sonei hachachamim. Then you're going to go and hate the rabbis and the chachamim who are preaching these laws. Lebirti asot, moneh et acherim asot. You're going to try to stop other people from performing mitzvot. Et kol mitzvotai, kofer shelo tzivitim. You're then going to deny God that He was the one that commanded these mitzvot. Le'afrechem et beriti, kofer ba'ikar. You are going to deny God's existence all in total. And Rashi says, Hare sheva averot. You have 7 sins here. Harishona goreret hashniya. The first causes the second. Veken ada shevi'i. Lo lamad, you didn't learn. Lo asa, you didn't perform. Mo'es ba'acherim ha'osim, you are disgusted with those else that do it. Soned ha'chachamim, you hate the rabbis and the chachamim. Moneh ha'acherim, you then prevent other people. Kofer ba'mitzvot, you deny the mitzvot, and kofer ba'ikar. That is avera, goreret avera. Now Hashem, out of His infinite kindness, He doesn't make a guy fall from 1 to 7. It's a chesed of Hashem. It doesn't make you just go right to kofer ba'ikar, deny God's existence. He gives everyone a chance to do teshuvah, right? That's his chesed. But you will continue to descend if you don't stop yourself. And that's the difficulty of avera goret avera, because one, you got to find within you to perform a mitzvah to break that chain. We'll conclude with the following idea. We'll fast forward to Chag Shavuot, which again is only a few weeks away. The main character at the beginning of the story is one that we don't hear of often because he didn't last too long. His name was Elimelech. Elimelech was the husband of of Naomi. I take that back. He was a husband of Naomi, and he was an extremely wealthy man. And his mistake, as the Megillah tells us, was that during a time of famine in Israel, he picked up and he left. I would like to quote you a Gemara. V'chen haya Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Omer. Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, we're going to be celebrating Lag BaOmer next week. He says, Elimelech, Machlon v'Chilion. Elimelech and his 2 sons, Machlon v'Chilion, Gedolei Hador hayu. They were not just regular guys. They were the top of the top. They were the Baba Salis. They were the Rav Ovadias. They were the Gedolei Hador. Uparnesei Hador. Not only were they the biggest Chachamim, but they were the biggest givers. They were the Parnasim. They distributed all the money because they were so wealthy. They had a lot of money. Why were they punished with death? Because they left Israel for Chutz La'aretz, outside. They went to the fields of Moab. Shneimar, the pasuk says, "Vatehom kol ha'ir aleihen, vatomarna hazot Naomi." After years have passed, Naomi comes back with Ruth, and all the people of Israel are looking at Naomi and they can't believe her eyes. She looks totally different. She aged. She lost a lot of weight because no food, and they were totally in wonder. Vatomarna, they said, "Hazot Naomi? Is that Naomi?" Gemara asks, "My Hazot Naomi? What does that mean? Is that really Naomi?" Amar B'Yitzchak, Amru, Chazitem Naomi sheyatzat me'eretz lechutz la'aretz ma'altala. Did you see what happened, what befell Naomi who left Israel for Chutz La'aretz? Meaning she didn't escape punishment there. She went there thinking that they were going to escape, and her husband died, and her 2 sons died, and she lost her status completely. Her socioeconomic status went from wealthiest, most distinguished individual to, is that Naomi? Can't believe it. Why? What happened? What happened that caused this downfall? So the Midrash tells us, very famous Midrash quoted by Rashi, again, he was of the great Chachamim and the greatest givers. When the years of famine came, what did he say? Amar, you know what's going to happen now? Everyone's going to be coming around my house. This guy with his kupa of tzedakah, this guy with his, all I'm going to be hearing all day is knocking, tzedakah. There's no food. So then I have the money. I can't handle that. Amad ubarachlo mipenehem. So he went and he took off and he escaped. That's what the pasuk says. Vayelech ish mi bet lechem Yehuda. He lost emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It started with that. What ended up happening? He died. His 2 sons went and married goyim, goyot. Rashi says very specifically that these boys married Ruth and Orpah before they convert. They did not convert. That's when they married them. Ruth only converted after the fact, on her way back with Naomi. To stoop to the level of marrying goyot women, and they were princesses. They were the daughters of kings. Okay, what happened? What happened to the Gedolei Adon? It starts from one thing. The Chidah says, if they had asked Elimelech 1 month before this whole story happened, would you have thought in a million years that your sons would have married goyot? What do you think? Never. Chas v'shalom. My sons, we're the Gedolei Adon. We are, they're sitting and learning all day. We have minyanim left, right, and center in our sense. What do you think he would have said? Of course not. Avera goreret avera. This is the severity. This is what Ben Azai was telling us. It is on us to find not only the wherewithal to avoid even one sin, because look where it can lead you, but to do the opposite. Mitzvah goreret mitzvah. One small act, one mitzvah kala. Treat it like a chamura. Treat it like, in your mind, say, even though it's small, I'm putting 3 coins in tzedakah in the morning. 3 coins. Small act. What's 15 cents? Okay, they're not changing the world. I'm not solving world hunger with my 3 coins that I'm putting in tzedakah. But it's a mitzvah. It's a small mitzvah. But in your eyes, you need to think that it's the biggest mitzvah in the world. Why do I have to think of it that way? Because I know what it's going to lead to. I know where it's going to get me to next time. It's going to get me to another mitzvah. I'm the next. I put 3 cents. I put 3 coins in tzedakah this morning, and then a few hours later, someone's going to come on my door. He says, "Listen, I got to support my family. Can you help me?" And you give a little bit more money, and now your mitzvah just got exponentially bigger. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu provides you with more, and then before you know it, you're one of the Gedolei Adon. But when you lose that emunah and you start running away from it, and you say, "You know what? I'm not interested in this," and you perform a small avera. In Elimelech's mind, it's okay. What's the big deal? I'm just going to go over here for a few days, for a few months. I'm just going to go to Moab, and I'll come back. The pasuk actually hints at that. He went there lagur biste Moab. He went there just to visit. It wasn't something that was permanent. He ended up staying there for 10 years. Well, he died, but his kids ended up staying there for 10 years. But Yeshivu Sham, they were there. They stayed there. It starts up with something small. Hashem should again, give us a koach. Mitzvah goreret mitzvah, and not chas v'shalom, avera goreret avera. May the zechut, of course, of Rabbi Meir and all the tzaddikim HaKedoshim protect all of Klal Yisrael. Amen. Ken Yiratzon.